still takes years between albums. And then within the last 5 years, he's put out like 4 albums. And I don't know if it's one of those things. It seems like when artists, songwriters who are big control freaks hit a certain age and they're just like, fuck it, I'm going to put out everything. Here you go. Like last year, he did this really cool thing. He seems to be more interested in the higher concept stuff.
Yeah.
He did, he brought, over like a month-long period, he did a Facebook Live show once a week in, I want to say it was like February or something like that, and broadcast it there. And it was all rehearsals for his upcoming album that culminated in the recording of the album live. Like, he was in a studio, there was no audience or anything like that, but the recording of the entire album happened on Facebook Live. So you could see, and in some instances they're doing, he's like, oh, I'm not happy with that take, let's do another take of it. So you actually get to see the process of this happening. And it was pretty cool to actually see the people in the studio, the production happening in the moment, all that kind of tweaking. And then he just turned around and with very, very minimal overdubbing, just released what everybody saw. And so, I was like, that takes some balls. That's
Did PG Harvey do something like that last year, or am I imagining that?
If she did, I wasn't aware of it.
I remember hearing somebody else did something similar where they did like a live recording album, but like they invited people to actually come and watch them do it. So.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's interesting to see what people do as the landscape shifts and people can rely on the you go into a studio and record something every couple of years and throw it out there and expect to sell a bunch of it's like something to get people to buy into it or something. I don't know. All right, well let's get into it. Right, I don't have anything numbered. I mean, there are 10 things in an order here, but it doesn't necessarily feel to me like I don't know. I think I can probably go from the bottom of the list and go up, and I feel like any of these in the top 10 that I have here could be in a different order at any given point. But I think we can trade off, and since I was the last person to be talking, if you want to start with yours.
Sure. Well, I'll go off on the one I submitted to Uprocks, because I still, even now, I might question the order of them. Mm-hmm. There's still 10 albums I'm still really fond of. So. Yeah. So I guess my number 10
drum roll
would be I think I have 2 rap albums on here, and this is the first one. It's by an artist named JPEG Mafia. It's called Veteran. And JPEG Mafia is a dude who's based in Los Angeles. He's part of the Def Bomb Arc label. And they've been kind of putting out stuff like they put out Lana Del Rey's, which is still one of my favorite band names of all time.
That is great.
I love that name so much. And she's a local. Like, she does noise music and like experimental electronic stuff. But she signs with them. And also a group called Clipping, who are like, you ever watch if you watch like the later seasons of SVU, Law and Order?
I haven't.
All right, well, their lead singer David Diggs, he was in Hamilton for a while.
Is Ice-T still in there?
He still is. T is like one of the, like, I think him and Mariska Hargitay are like the 2 like surviving members. Like, I think they're just in it for, they're like, so long as we can get a paycheck, we're doing this.
Why not?
But it's a fascinating album because it's the production, which I think Peggy, the rapper, does himself, is really like impressionistic. Where it's like he takes these sounds that sound kind of like old 8-bit or video game music. Like it's not like chiptune music exactly, but it has certain video gamey Atari qualities, and he turns them into these fractured and like really kind of harsh, noisy beats, and he just raps kind of around them. And also, a lot of his raps are these like kind of stuff about him, like about his time in the military or pop culture stuff. But also he's also a big wrestling fan, so he does like a lot of like these really weird wrestling jokes in the middle of this very avant-garde sounding rap album. And I think part of the reason why I liked it, because it came out back in January, was I love the dissonant sound of it, but also like in the last year, I've kind of become a wrestling fan, which I never thought I would be. So I can listen to the album and be like, oh, I get that joke. I get that reference.
That's pretty funny. The most wrestling I've ever seen is watching Glow. I think that's the extent of it.
Like I used to think I mean, it is dumb. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's not dumb. It's part of the point of wrestling is that it's kind of stupid.
Entertainment, yeah.
Right, but I remember watching it and being like, oh, this is this theater. Mm-hmm. I didn't watch it because I thought it was sports because they had like like there's scores and there's stats, but really it's all beside the point. It's all staged, so it's just theater, really.
Yeah.
Once I gleamed onto that, then I started really enjoying it because again, you're watching like I mean, this guy Braun Strowman, whose gimmick, which is my favorite gimmick ever, his gimmick is that he basically rolls vehicles on the people. So there's a bit where like there's this other wrestler Roman Reigns, where they get to a refeud and Braun beats him up, and so they strap Roman to a gurney and they wheel him like to the back of the auditorium where there's ambulance waiting for him. And they load Roman into the ambulance, and Braun, out of nowhere, like Jason Voorhees, pops into their frame. He's like, I'm not finished with you yet. Beats him up inside the ambulance while he's still attached to the gurney. And he pops out, gets out, and he shoves the ambulance over. Just pushes it over.
Wow.
And then because the wrestling promotions were like, oh, people love that, so they had like tipping over fire trucks and crap, and it get his running theme where they at one point gave him a grappling hook and had him pull down a lighting ring on somebody. It's like the most ridiculous thing.
Wow.
It's like, that's why I love wrestling. It's so preposterous.
Indeed it is. All right, so I'm gonna start at the bottom of the list with possibly the saddest album I listened to all year, and there were some sad ones, but I don't. It's just, it was so good though. It was so very good, and it was Marianne Faithfull's Negative Capability.
Ooh, see, that's one of the ones I miss. I really wanted to hear it.
It's just so. She sounds. It's like just that grizzled, old lived-in voice that has she's almost like singing at this point. It's, she doesn't have a range.
Yeah.
But there's still just this eerie beauty to it all. And it's the people that she's partnered up with. There are a couple of covers on there. She does Dylan's, a great rendition of Dylan's "It's All Over Now, Baby Blue." And of course she does a Rolling Stones song, and but it's a great one of theirs, and but otherwise it's originals that she co-wrote with like Mark Lanigan, Nick Cave, Ed Harcourt is part of the band, Warren Ellis is part of the band, and it's a very understated, if that ends up being her last album, which, I mean, come on, it's probably going to be her last album. It's a really, really great one to go out on. So it's mostly original, and like the lyrics are pretty impressionistic and pretty dark. I mean, it's definitely, there's a heavy theme running through it of her response basically to the Paris bombings.
Yeah.
And so that weighs into it, and that might not age well, but it's, again, like, listening to it, I got the reference, but if I didn't, it would still just be, I think, this kind of dark, impressionistic, end of life kind of speaking to some of the preciousness of it. So yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, well done.
Speaking of kind of a quick tangent to that, did you see the Nico movie that came out this year?
No.
Nico 1989?
No.
That was really good, because just the way you described Marianne Faithfull kind of reminded me of it, because it's a fictional film, but it takes place like in the last year before Nico died in Ibiza, and just follow her kind of last tour for Europe, and then the actress who plays that character like embodies her. Like it's one of those performances where it's genuinely unnerving. Like, she even sings the songs in the movie, and you can't really tell it's not Nico singing because the voice is so close. It's called Nico 1989.
Okay.
I think it might be on streaming right now. It's really a really good movie. It doesn't sugarcoat it either. Like, it's not like like Bohemian Rhapsody, for example. It's like gives you a very sugar-coated version of a particular story.
Yeah. But hey, it's making the money, right? So
people love giant fake teeth, apparently.
Yeah. Yep.
I can't. Every time I see a trailer and you see like his like ridiculous prosthetic teeth, I'm like, come on, guys, really?
Yep.
How many fucking millions do you put in this movie? Could you get decent
better
bad teeth?
Yeah. Better bad teeth, exactly. Those bad teeth are terrible.
The Big Book of British Smiles. They're always like one of the 5 top Simpsons gags to me.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. That and the rakes. All right. Next up.
So next up on my list would be Ice Age, Beyondless. And Ice Age, have you ever heard of their older stuff?
No.
Well, they're a Danish group. They started out as being a kind of a hardcore punk band, but in the last 2 years they had this interesting metamorphosis where these couple of records of like really super fast and aggressive punk music. And then the last album they released before this one was called Plowing Through the Fields of Love, and it was them becoming like Nick Cave.
Oh.
Like they started getting really interested in like doing like kind of darker, almost country folky stuff. So they were still like a punk band, but they did they did these slower numbers that almost had these rockabilly rhythms to them, or like kind of doing more like Bad Seed style kind of like dark murder ballads. And this new album, Beyondless, is like more of like them like leaning deeper into that sound. Like there's a song on there called Painkiller, which is a duet between their lead singer and Sky Fiera. And it sounds like a Rolling Stones song, basically, because they throw in a bunch of horn charts and stuff.
Oh.
So when I listening to it, I'm like, are these horns? Are they using horns? But it's an album where it's just just reassuring to hear like a younger rock band that has a kind of like almost Exile and Main Street level of ambition, where they're throwing in all these random instruments and they're kind of going for more of that kind of like a gothic and like tortured expression in their singing and the lyrics, and like there's like not a single shred of irony in that album, which is part of the reason why I really love it.
That just it's honest in its appreciation of that kind of sound.
Yeah, it's going for that like this is dark soulful rock music, and like not in a way where it's like winking at you and being like this is kind of ridiculous, because there are moments where it teeters on the edge of cheese, but never quite gets there.
What's the next album I'm going to talk about? No, it's not. One of the album that just missed the top 10 is by a band called The Love Language, called Baby Grand, and it's not their first album, but it was their first album for me by them, and it's kind of got a wall of sound to it, and it verges on cheesy, but also it is just again unironic about what it's trying to do, and never quite teeters into the cheese. But my next one, and then I might do the next one after that real quick, and we'll then I'll have I don't know, we'll get all out of order. We're going wild here, because it's kind of they kind of go hand in hand, even though they're completely different albums. The only link is that they're both Wilco people.
All right. Fair
so
enough.
the first one is the Nels Cline 4.
Okay.
And the album was Currents Constellations. It's Currents, Constellations. There's no and. Nels Cline doesn't need an and. And it's straight up jazz. It's a combo of instruments that I love. It's 2 guitars, bass, and drums. So it's a rhythm heavy, very, very much, with Nels Cline, especially kind of knowing what he's capable of and what he's done for like Mike Watt and what he does for Wilco. I was expecting it to be like all just avant-garde shit, and which I say avant-garde shit. I love avant-garde shit, so it's not a derogatory shit. But I was expecting it's a shit of appreciation. There's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of the out there, almost like Ornette Coleman, even further out into like an Anthony Braxton kind of experimental sound to it, very dissonant and that sort of thing. And then he just does this straight up like, almost cool jazz kind of 60s sort of thing too, and it just sounds beautiful. It's just really super well done, and there's a balance between all of that to the the tuneless and the tuneful.
Yeah.